The elevator door slid open with a sharp metallic sound, and Lydia Hawthorne stumbled out, her palms slamming against the cold hospital wall to keep herself upright. "Mrs. Hawthorne," the doctor called after her, his voice tight, professional. "You shouldn't leave without." "I heard you," Lydia said, not turning back. Her fingers trembled as she fumbled for her phone. "Late-stage stomach cancer." The words echoed in her skull like a sentence already carried out. She pressed the call button, bringing the phone to her ear as she stepped into the corridor flooded with white light and antiseptic air. One ring. Two. Three. No answer. She stared at the screen, Julian Cross's name glowing back at her, and forced herself to breathe. He was probably busy. He was always busy. She redialed anyway, her thumb moving out of habit more than hope. The call went unanswered again. Across the city, Julian was crouched in front of a small boy, tightening the laces on the child's sneakers. "Too tight?" Julian asked. The boy shook his head enthusiastically. "Uncle Julian, are you coming to my school play?" Julian smiled, a rare softness in his eyes. "If you invite me properly." A woman laughed behind him. Serena Vale stood there, her hand resting lightly on Julian's shoulder. "You'll spoil them," she said gently. "They'll think you're always available." "For them," Julian replied. "I am." The nurse called Serena's name, and Julian stood, smoothing the boy's hair before guiding them toward the examination room. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it briefly, saw Lydia's name, and turned the screen face down. At the hospital, Lydia lowered her phone slowly. Of course. She walked past the registration desk, past the murmured conversations, past the smiling families, and out into the sunlight. Her legs felt hollow, as if they belonged to someone else. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply kept walking until the building was behind her. By the time she returned to the Cross estate, dusk had settled. The house lights were on, but the silence inside was deafening. Lydia placed her bag on the table, loosened her scarf, and stared at the untouched dinner laid out hours earlier. She moved through the rooms like a ghost. 3 years. 3 years of waiting for a marriage that never arrived. Her phone buzzed again. A message this time. "Julian, I'll be late tonight. Don't wait up." Lydia read the words twice, then set the phone down. "I wasn't waiting," she murmured to the empty room. She walked upstairs, opened the drawer beneath the vanity, and pulled out a thin folder. Inside was a neatly prepared divorce agreement. No demands, no accusations, no tears spilled across the paper. She had signed it weeks ago. She had just been waiting for the right moment. Or maybe she had been waiting for the wrong one. The front door opened close to midnight. Lydia was seated at the dining table, the folder placed carefully in front of her. Julian stopped short when he saw her. "You're still awake?" he asked, loosening his tie. "I was waiting for you," she said calmly. Julian frowned. "You just said." She slid the folder across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "Divorce papers." The word hung heavy between them. Julian stared at the folder, then at her face. "You're serious?" "Yes." "You're not even going to ask why I was late?" His tone sharpened. "Not going to accuse me?" Lydia met his gaze steadily. Would it change anything? Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance. Discomfort. He picked up the folder, flipping through the pages. "You're giving up too easily," he said flatly. Lydia smiled faintly. "You never wanted this marriage." Julian snapped the folder shut. "Don't pretend you know what I want." "Then tell me," she said. "Just once." Silence stretched. Julian's jaw tightened. "I married you because it was necessary." "There it is," Lydia whispered. He took a step toward her. "Don't look at me like that. You knew what this was." She stood. "I knew you didn't love me. I didn't know you hated me." That struck something. Julian's hand shot out, gripping her chin hard enough to force her to look up. His eyes were cold, stripped of pretense. "Your family destroyed mine," he said. "Every tear you shed is overdue." Lydia's breath hitched, but she didn't pull away. "What are you talking about?" "My sister," Julian hissed. "Elena. Ruined. Cast out. Dead because your father wanted to play righteous hero." The room tilted. "My father exposed corruption," Lydia said slowly. "He didn't know." "I don't care what he knew," Julian snapped. "I married you so you'd understand what loss feels like." Her chest tightened. "So this was revenge?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "And now you want to walk away before the debt is paid?" Lydia laughed softly, the sound broken. "You think 3 years of silence pays for a life?" Julian released her with a shove. This suffering is what your family owes. She steadied herself, her hand pressing to her stomach as a wave of nausea rolled through her. Then take it, she said quietly. I won't fight you. That seemed to anger him more. Stop acting like a victim, he snapped. You married into this knowing. I married you, she interrupted, her voice rising for the first time. I married a man I believed could love me. Julian turned away. We're done here. The next morning, Lydia received a call before dawn. Mrs. Hawthorne, a stranger's voice said. Your father has been in an accident. The hospital smelled different this time. Sharper. Colder. Her father lay motionless, machines breathing for him. Lydia stood at his bedside, her fingers curling around his limp hand. Dad, she whispered. Wake up, please. The doctor shook his head gently. The damage is extensive. We don't know if he'll regain consciousness. Her phone buzzed again. Julian, I'll transfer some money. Don't cause trouble. She stared at the message until her vision blurred. I have nothing left, she whispered to her father. Nothing to bargain with. Days passed in a blur of hospital corridors and sleepless nights. Lydia learned her cancer had progressed faster than expected. Treatment would be aggressive, painful, uncertain. Julian never came. When she finally called him, he answered on the third ring. What? He asked impatiently. My father is comatose, she said. I was diagnosed with cancer. Silence. Then, you're lying. I wish I were. He exhaled sharply. I'm busy. The line went dead. Lydia lowered the phone slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply made a decision. That night, she returned to the Cross estate one last time. She packed nothing. She wrote a single note and placed it atop the divorce agreement. The life my family owes you. I'll repay it myself. Rain poured as she climbed the steps of the unfinished building overlooking the city. Wind whipped at her hair as she stepped onto the edge. Her phone rang. Julian. For the first time, she answered. Where are you? His voice demanded. Somewhere high. Lydia replied softly. A beat of silence. What do you mean? His breathing quickened. Lydia, don't play games. I never did, she said. Goodbye, Julian. Lydia, wait. She ended the call, closed her eyes, and stepped forward. Julian's phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the marble floor. Trace the call. He barked into the receiver again, snatching it back up. Now, the assistant on the other end stammered. Mr. Cross, the signal. I don't care how, Julian snapped. Find her. He was already moving, grabbing his coat, keys scraping loudly against the entry table. His heart hammered in a way it never had before, sharp and panicked, as if something inside his chest was tearing loose. Julian. Serena's voice came from the hallway. She stood there, concern etched across her face. What's wrong? He didn't stop walking. Lydia is missing. Serena frowned. Missing? Didn't she want the divorce? She's not answering, he said curtly. I need to find her. Serena followed him outside. Julian, you're overreacting. Lydia likes dramatics. She always has. He paused, turning to look at her. She said goodbye. Serena hesitated. People say things they don't mean. Julian didn't reply. He got into the car and drove off, tires screeching as he pulled onto the road. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the city lights into streaks. His mind replayed her voice again and again. Somewhere high. Damn it, he muttered, slamming his fist against the steering wheel. Security called back 10 minutes later. We traced her phone to a construction site near the old financial district. Julian took the exit without signaling. By the time he arrived, red and blue lights cut through the rain. Police cars. An ambulance. His breath caught painfully in his throat. No, he whispered, pushing open the car door. An officer stepped forward. Sir, you can't. I'm Julian Cross, he said sharply. Where is she? The officer hesitated, then gestured toward the building. Julian ran. He skidded across wet concrete, nearly slipping as he reached the edge of the cordoned-off area. Paramedics worked frantically below, their voices urgent. Pulses weak. Get her on the stretcher. Julian leaned over the railing, his heart stopping when he saw her. Lydia lay unconscious, rain-soaked, her face pale beneath streaks of blood. Her body looked unbearably small against the stretcher. Lydia, he shouted. Lydia. She didn't move. He didn't remember getting down the stairs. He only remembered dropping to his knees beside the stretcher as they loaded her into the ambulance. I'm her husband, he said hoarsely. I'm coming with you. The paramedic nodded, barely glancing at him. Inside the ambulance, Julian stared at Lydia's face, unmoving, fragile. He reached for her hand, then froze when he felt how cold it was. "Stay with me," he said urgently. "You can't. Don't you dare." She didn't respond. At the hospital, they rushed her into surgery. Julian was left alone in the waiting room, his clothes soaked, his hands shaking. Minutes stretched into hours. Serena arrived eventually, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. "Julian," she said softly. "I came as soon as I heard." He didn't look at her. "You should go home," she continued. "You're in shock." "Why did you follow me?" he asked quietly. She stiffened. "I was worried about you." "Were you?" He finally turned to face her, his eyes bloodshot. "Or were you worried she'd ruin things?" Serena's lips parted. "Julian, this isn't the time." "When was the time?" he snapped. "When I ignored her calls. When I told her I was busy while she was dying." Serena recoiled. "Dying?" The doctor approached then, his expression grave. "Are you Mr. Cross?" Julian stood immediately. "Yes." "Is she?" "She survived the fall," the doctor said. "Barely. But there are complications." "What kind of complications?" Julian demanded. "She has late-stage stomach cancer," the doctor said evenly, "and internal bleeding. Her body is extremely weak." The world tilted. "Cancer?" Julian repeated. "No, that's not. She never." "She was diagnosed recently," the doctor continued. "She delayed treatment." Julian staggered back, dropping into a chair. Serena stared at the doctor. "Are you sure?" The doctor nodded. "We found medical records in her bag." Julian buried his face in his hands. "Cancer." Every memory twisted violently. Her pale face. Her shaking hands. The way she pressed her stomach during their argument. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew? And I?" He stood abruptly and turned on Serena. "You said she was dramatic." Serena flushed. "I didn't know." "You never wanted to know," Julian said bitterly. Hours later, Lydia was moved to the ICU. Julian was allowed in briefly. She lay there surrounded by machines, tubes running into her arms, her breathing shallow. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Lydia, I'm here." Her eyelids fluttered faintly. "Don't leave," he said urgently. "Please." "I didn't mean." Her lips moved. He leaned closer. "What did you say?" "Too late," she whispered. The words sliced through him. "No," Julian said, shaking his head. "It's not. I can fix this. I'll make things right." Her eyes opened just enough to meet his. There was no hatred there. No anger. Only exhaustion. "You already did what you wanted," she murmured. "You won." "That's not true," he said desperately. "I never wanted you to die." "I know," Lydia said faintly. "You wanted me to suffer." He flinched. "You succeeded." Her eyes closed again. A nurse gently guided Julian out. "She needs rest." Days passed. Julian refused to leave the hospital. He slept in the chair outside her room, ignored calls, canceled meetings. Serena came once more. "You're destroying yourself," she said quietly. Julian didn't look up. "You should go." Serena swallowed. "What about us?" "There is no us," he replied flatly. She stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked away. On the 5th day, Lydia woke. She didn't ask for Julian. She didn't ask for anyone. When he finally entered her room, she turned her face toward the window. "Lydia," he said softly. "What do you want?" she asked. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything." She smiled faintly. "Sorry doesn't change the past." "I'll stay," he said quickly. "I'll take care of you. We can start over." She laughed weakly. "You don't get to decide that." "I love you," Julian blurted. Silence. Lydia turned to look at him then, her gaze steady despite her weakness. "No," she said gently. "You don't. You just don't want to lose." The words hit harder than any accusation. "I lost my family," she continued. "My health. My dignity. I lost myself trying to earn something you never intended to give." He knelt beside her bed. "Tell me what to do." "Let me go," Lydia said. "No," he whispered. "I can't." "You already did," she replied. The monitor beeped steadily as the space between them filled with everything unsaid. Julian reached for her hand again. This time, she didn't pull away. "I'm tired," Lydia said quietly. Julian bowed his head over her hand, his shoulders shaking. Outside the room, the nurse paused, then continued down the hall. Lydia slept for most of the day after that conversation. Julian stayed anyway. He sat beside her bed, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, listening to the machines that now dictated her existence. Every beep felt like a countdown. Every pause made his heart seize. A nurse came in quietly to check her vitals. "She's stable for now," the nurse said. "But her condition is fragile." "What about the cancer?" Julian asked, his voice rough. The nurse hesitated. "Treatment is possible, but it depends on her will and her body." Julian nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." When Lydia woke again, it was late evening. The sky outside the window was dark, dotted with distant city lights. She spoke without turning her head. "You're still here?" "Yes," Julian said immediately. "I'm not going anywhere." "That's what you said when we got married," she replied calmly. The words landed softly, but they cut deep. "I didn't understand then," he said. "I thought revenge would heal me." "And did it?" Lydia asked. He didn't answer. She turned toward him slowly, studying his face. "You look different." "I am different," he said. "I lost you." "I'm not gone," she said. "I'm just no longer yours." Julian reached for her hand. "Let me stay? Let me make up for everything." "You can't undo what you did," Lydia replied. "You can only live with it." The door opened quietly. A man in a suit stepped inside. Julian recognized him immediately, his legal advisor. "Mr. Cross," the man said cautiously. "There are urgent matters that require your attention." Julian stood reluctantly and stepped outside. "I'll be right back," he told Lydia. She didn't respond. In the hallway, the advisor lowered his voice. "Serena Vale has filed a formal separation from all shared assets. She's leaving the city." Julian felt nothing. "Handle it." "There's more," the advisor continued. "We reviewed Elena's case again." "Your sister?" Julian stiffened. "What about it?" "The evidence suggests your sister wasn't ruined by Mr. Hawthorne's actions. The exposure came from within her own company." Julian's blood ran cold. "That's impossible." "We found documents," the advisor said carefully. "Elena falsified records. The investigation would have happened regardless." Julian's knees weakened. "You're saying," Julian whispered, "Lydia's family wasn't responsible?" The advisor nodded. "It appears you punished the wrong people." Julian stumbled back against the wall. "No, no, no, no." He turned and rushed back into Lydia's room. She was awake, staring at the ceiling. "Lydia," he said hoarsely, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, waiting. "I was wrong," he said. "About your father. About everything." Her brows knit slightly. "What do you mean?" "My sister, she wasn't ruined because of him," Julian said, his voice breaking. "I destroyed you for nothing." Lydia closed her eyes slowly. "Then this," she said quietly, "was truly pointless." "I'm so sorry," Julian said, dropping to his knees. "I took everything from you for a lie." Tears slid down Lydia's temples, disappearing into her pillow. "Get up," she said faintly. Julian obeyed immediately. "I don't want your guilt," Lydia said. "I don't want your apologies. I just want peace." "I'll give you anything," he pleaded. "Money. My name. My life." She shook her head. "You already took my life." The doctor entered moments later, his expression urgent. "We need to talk," he said. Julian stood. "What's wrong?" "She's refusing treatment," the doctor said. Julian turned to Lydia in shock. "Why?" "I'm tired," she said simply. "And I don't want to spend what little time I have left fighting pain for someone else's conscience." Julian grabbed her hand. "Fight for yourself. Please." She looked at him steadily. "I am." The next morning, Lydia asked for fresh clothes. Julian helped her sit up as nurses assisted her. She looked thinner, lighter, like someone already halfway gone. "I want to leave," she said. "Where?" Julian asked. "Anywhere you aren't deciding for me," she replied. He swallowed. "I'll arrange." "No," Lydia interrupted. "I want to go alone." The word alone echoed painfully. "Let me walk you out," he said. She considered it, then nodded. They moved slowly through the hospital corridors. Nurses and patients watched quietly as they passed, unaware they were witnessing an ending. At the entrance, Lydia stopped. "This is where you turned back," she said. Julian's chest tightened. "Will I see you again?" She met his gaze. "No." Something in her tone told him she meant it. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded paper. "I transferred everything to you. The estate. The company. Everything." She didn't take it. "I don't want what you used to control me." She stepped back. "Live," she said. "That will be your punishment." Then she turned and walked away. Julian watched until she disappeared into the sunlight. 3 months later, the city buzzed with news. Lydia Hawthorne had passed away quietly in a private care facility overseas. No family present. No husband by her side. Julian received the news alone in his office. He didn't cry. He didn't move. He simply stared at the wall until night fell. He attended her funeral without announcing himself. He stood at the back, watching strangers pay respects to a woman he had never truly known. When it was over, he approached her grave. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know that doesn't matter anymore." Years passed. Julian never remarried. He dissolved the company that once bore his name. He lived quietly, anonymously, visiting one grave every year. On the 10th anniversary, he placed a single white flower on the stone. "I finally understand," he said softly. "Love isn't possession, and revenge never heals." He turned and walked away, leaving the flower behind. If this story moved you, please like this video. It helps us reach more people who appreciate emotional storytelling. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about love, loss, and consequences. And comment below, do you think Julian deserved redemption, or was losing Lydia the punishment he could never escape? Thank you for staying until the end.